Right, welcome back to the Nikki Clarke Show. How's everybody doing? Fantastic. Thank you so much for making the stop here, the Nikki Clarke Show, transforming lives one story at a time. And I am honored to introduce an extraordinary guest, Dr. Shelly Khusal, an award-winning human rights scholar, educator, and founder of Precision Writing and Consulting. With a PhD in educational leadership and policy, her work focuses on dismantling systemic barriers and creating pathways for equity and inclusion. Welcome, Dr. Shelly.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
Great to see you again. Always a pleasure. And let's get started. I want to know more about your work. Your work sits at the intersection of education, human rights, and social impact. What inspired you to pursue this powerful path?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in justice and fairness, and I never could really understand why oppression existed and why people had to fight for their humanity, like basic freedoms. So I think the story started even before I was born, which is my country, Tanzania, was colonized by the Germans, and then it was colonized by Britain until it got independence in 1961. And in the early 1970s, there was a leader named Idi Amin, who was a militant political leader of neighboring country Uganda, that expelled 50,000 Asians with only 90 days to vacate. So this actually, set fear amongst other East African countries like Tanzania and Kenya, and families started to migrate, including my family. So, I didn't realize it at the time, but that political shift changed my personal history as well. And then I found myself always kind of doing work around human rights and social justice as I started to learn more, grow, and people like Rigoberta Menchú, who's a Guatemalan indigenous activist who fought for human rights, Dr. Ambedkar, who is the who drafted or contributed to the Indian Constitution, who fought against caste system. I was always drawn to people like that and to things like that. So my work kind of, I worked in the United Nations as an intern. I then went into work in law, in policy. I then went into work in education, where I am now as a human rights officer, investigating, systemic, racism and discrimination. And then I went on to do my PhD, which again, focuses all around social justice.
I love that. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
How can educators and institutions move beyond awareness to create real, measurable change?
Yeah, so first and foremost, embedding human rights into curriculum. We have to understand what our rights are, because we can't advocate for our rights if we don't know what they are. And the Ontario Human Rights Commission has a wealth of knowledge and resources. I mean, I think it's, people should know about these. These are free resources on how you can understand what you are entitled to, okay, especially in Ontario. So build it into your curriculum. Culturally relevant practice. Students need to see representation in their classrooms, in the staff. They need to see themselves represented in the curriculum. I would say training. Training should be intentional. None of this checkbox exercise. We're past that. Yeah. It has to be meaningful and intentional. There has to be a way to measure that the training is actually, being understood. And then holding your leaders accountable.
Absolutely. What does advocacy look like in action for you?
For me, it means showing up, doing the work, being consistent. In the spaces that I sit at, I'm fortunate to be in those spaces. So if someone doesn't have a voice or can't use their voice, I can assist in that. But also like bringing others with me, empowering others. And just asking the difficult questions, when I'm there. Like, who is represented here? Who is left out from the discussion?
Yes. Brilliant. So let's talk about Precision Writing and Consulting. You founded that. What inspired you to create this platform?
So during my PhD, I was fortunate enough to win some awards and to publish in journals, academic journals, as well as to get into high, like prestigious conferences. And I realized early on that there was a formula to this. There was a specific way on how you write in order to be successful. So I helped students throughout my time there. And then I realized when I graduated a few months ago that I should actually turn it into a business.
I love that. Well, I am very excited to share my copy of this extraordinary book that you wrote, My Love Letter to India on Colonialism, Legacy, and Endurance, a story of identity, belonging, and discovery of self. What inspired you to write this amazing book?
Okay, so my grandparents left India in 1918. So that's a century ago, okay? And in those 100 years, no one from my family has stepped foot in India.
Wow.
So, and what's powerful about this is that we speak 4 languages, Indian languages, we eat the food, we dress the dress, and we dance the dance, but we have 100 years of never having stepped foot on Indian soil.
Not amazing.
To me, that is the power of the migration story. And my story isn't unique. I think a lot of people can relate to that story. But what I did in this book is I went to India 2 years ago, and I traveled for 2 months to many cities, one of which was very important to me, which is where my grandparents were from, the grandparents I never knew. And so this book is about finding about myself. It's really about identity, and it's about connecting with that piece of myself that, you know, growing up in Canada, but being East African, but being Indian, I call it in my book the ache of the in-between. Never fully feeling like you're here or there, like never fully feeling like you fit in, but somehow embracing all of the different cultures and traditions that make up who I am. And I was having a conversation with Donovan Lacroxi from Met Radio 2 days ago, and he said to me, that's no different than somebody who's mixed race, you know, always trying to navigate between all of these different spaces. Yeah.
100 years of, you know, starting a new chapter in another country, but the influence is so strong.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. And where can people get a copy of the book?
On Amazon. It's on Amazon.ca.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to wrap up with the last question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to young scholars, especially those from marginalized communities who want to pursue leadership and advocacy?
Okay, so I'm going to look right in the camera for this one because I'm talking to the youth. So the first thing is, you know, the work of equity and justice and leadership need you. Your voice matters, your perspectives matter, you matter, and so you need to show up, you need to speak up, and you need to know that you have a right to be here.
I love that. You have a right to be here. Fantastic. Dr. Shelly, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your pearls of wisdom.
Thank you.
And where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, and everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm everywhere. And the name is, yeah, just the way you see it.
You know what? I have a really strong feeling your grandparents are watching now, and they're very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shelly. You've been watching the Nikki Clarke Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nikki Clarke, and we'll be back again next time. Don't go anywhere. Bye for now.